Well, guys, Luka Doncic might be on the Lakers right now, but the good news is Mike G didn't get traded anywhere, so we're good to go. I appreciate you stopping by, my friend. Another War Rapport Wednesday, and we're talking basketball yet again. Look, another week and another time where Auburn grinds out a crazy win. Ole Miss looked like a team that could get Auburn if the chips fell the right way. Auburn forced to grind out another win, and they've come out on top in a hostile environment. Your initial takeaways from winning in Oxford?
Well, this was an Ole Miss team that beat Alabama already, so we knew what they had to bring to the table. They gave Auburn their best shot. Now, missed free throws will haunt the Rebels. They missed 11 free throws in that game. I tweeted it out during it that this was going to come back to haunt them. Their margin for error was very small, but I think what we saw again in this one is Johni Broome is the best player in the country, Rex. So, you know, he's carried Auburn. He's been the one reliable thing that they've had consistently all season that you can go back to. So the last couple games, shooting kind of waned off from that guard position, and Auburn survived it. And I worried about whether they could survive this game if shooting waned off again. Well, it didn't wane. They shot 50% from three, 14 of 28 from three-point range, and they really never felt like they were going to lose this game. I know it looked close on paper, but the SEC is tough this year, and I think that it's a great win for Auburn. This is the end of that 6-game stretch that we talked about this on our show. I thought Auburn would be great to go 4-2 during this stretch.
You expected a couple hiccups here and there.
They won every single one of them. This is the best team in the country. I think that they should still be the best team in the country come next week.
And it looks like if they held on to that #1 spot, no one has beat them. And look, one of the moments of that game for me, Johni Broome is now feeling himself a little bit. And there's one thing to know that you're one of the best players on the court, but there's another thing to brag about it. And hitting a couple of threes and doing the call on God celebration right in front of the Ole Miss fans, and let's just say they didn't return the favor. They were very enthusiastic in their jeering of Johni Broome. Your thoughts when you see Johni Broome? We see his confidence has grown week after week after week with this team. He's becoming a very, and you just said it, best player in the country. He's starting to prove it week in and week out.
Not only did he hit threes, step back threes.
Man.
A step back three, call home, tell your mama I'm him. That's Johni Broome. It was fantastic to watch him because you need a ton of confidence to take a shot like that, you know, as a big man.
Oh, yeah.
And he's doing that right now in critical moments of the game. And as a fan or a spectator or as a media person, the crazy part is when you see that ball leave his hand, there's a belief that he's going to hit it.
As a big guy.
As a big guy, right? Yeah, it was like, ooh, he's taking the shot. We know he can hit this shot. And so Auburn now has another person that can hit shots from the perimeter in crunch time. They scored 92 points in this game against Ole Miss, and I want to point out, Johni's a big man, but only 28 points in that game were scored in the paint.
That's wild.
So they scored a lot from the perimeter and that mid-range section of the court, and they did a great job. So Johni is stepping it up. I think there were some questions about how he would recover from the injury. How would he come back from the injury? I think he's come back with a vengeance. I thought maybe he came back a game too early, but he got through it without re-injuring that ankle, and he clearly wasn't 100%, but Auburn loses to Tennessee without him. Once he gets back to 100%, oh, good luck for the rest of college basketball.
I was about to say that. That probably is, you know what, it's a cheat code. But when you talk about best players in the country, two names seem to always come up to the forefront.
Yep.
Broome being one of them, and of course the phenom that is Cooper Flagg. All credit is due to what that dude Blue Devil's doing because it is must-see TV. But so is Broome. I just got to ask you up front. Who is the best player in the country, Flagg or Broome?
It's got to be Johni Broome. And I'll tell you this. When you look at his impact on the court, he does things that you can't quantify in stats. Now, I want to make this point about the Tennessee game. Hats off to Tennessee. They gave Auburn a run for their money. But however, you got a 70% Johni Broome in that game. And as a result, they got a lot of shots off around the basket that they normally wouldn't be able to get if Johni is 100% and able to plant off that injured ankle. So when he's around the basket, affecting shots or changing the game or causing you to play different, how do you quantify with stats? You don't really quantify that in stats. His presence on the court makes teams play Auburn differently offensively, and I think that's why he's the best player in the country. And to me, it's not particularly close in terms of impact. Now, if you want to look at points scored, I think Cooper is averaging 20 points a game.
It's insane.
Johni's averaging a double-double. He's not far behind him, 18 points a game. And he doesn't, like, he can shoot the three, but you got to remember, this is a big man, right? So he's going to take more shots to get his points than Cooper will maybe shooting threes from the outside.
So either way, I just hope that we eventually get Auburn and Duke and see Flagg and Broome go at it, maybe in the Final Four, maybe for the national title. That'll be a lot of fun, but watch Broome. He is 100% a generational. Perfect way to describe it. Now, as we get into this week, you have a big matchup against Florida. That's a top 10 matchup. I know that's easy to circle. Kind of a trap game. As we're recording this, they're going to play Oklahoma. But this team, no matter if it's an unranked Oklahoma or a big-time Florida, they always look so focused. Is that what has impressed you about this team as well?
Yeah. Look, if you're Auburn, you're lucky you get this one at home. Right now, the last time these two teams met, it was in the SEC tournament final in Nashville. Auburn won that game to take home the championship trophy last spring. But ultimately, this speaks to the depth of the SEC this year. Florida is going to be a tough matchup. They always give Auburn a tough matchup, despite whatever happened in that tournament last year. And I expect it to be one that Auburn comes out on top in. They've got this game at home. Auburn does not lose in Neville. It's been a long time since we've seen that. So look, Florida is good, but there are a lot of good teams in the conference this year, and they didn't look so hot in their last game either. So
very fair.
can you win those? Can you win the games that you don't look that great, that you're not hitting those threes from the outside where those buckets aren't falling? Auburn is doing that, and there's not a lot of other teams in the conference that can say the same.
And now you mentioned that we haven't seen Auburn lose in Neville Arena in a long, long time. And when you think of college basketball, I know the traditional places you think of absolutely crazy environments, Cameron Indoor, Fog Allen, you can go up and down the list. Is there a better place or a better home environment than Neville Arena right now?
Look, it's up there.
Yeah.
It's up there. Cameron Indoor is crazy.
Absolutely.
It is a crazy environment, and there's some great venues in college basketball. But what I will say about it is it's as tough a place to play as there is in the country. So is it up there with the Dukes and the North Carolinas? Absolutely. That's what they've turned it into. They could have gone for more seats. They designed something from an engineering standpoint that would be loud, that they could pack out game after game, and that's what they've done. Bruce Pearl built this brick by brick. When he got to Auburn, he went out and he asked people to come to the games. He said, give me a shot. I'm going to get this team there. And you saw progress in those first few years. It took them a while to get there. It culminated in that Final Four in the 18-19 season. And now you're back at the pinnacle of college basketball. And so part of that is having a home environment that intimidates fans. That Tennessee game, that's as loud as I've ever heard that.
Wow.
It was incredible. Now, it wasn't a high-scoring game, but Rex, it was incredible watching how the fans had an effect on that game. I think that's going to continue into the Florida game.
Oh, the jungle is absolutely special this year. Let's switch it over to the women's side here. Now, when you go to Columbia, it's tough. When they retire Asia's number, I don't know who could beat that team at that point. Auburn struggled, but are they heading in the right direction? Because we saw that Gittens is having a great impact. Deanna Gaston's doing everything she can. Do you still see that this is a team that's heading in the right direction?
Gittens still dealing with a nagging injury, but she scored 10 points, I think, in like 8 minutes of play in that game. So her ability to be able to affect the game offensively is clear to me. Auburn shot 50% from the field and lost by 17 points. That's how good South Carolina is.
Yeah.
So they are taking steps in the right direction. I think if you're Johnny Harris, you've had to remake this starting lineup like 6 times already this year without Talia Scott, without Caitlin Duhan, who was dismissed from the team, and adding Dong to the roster. So it's going to be interesting to see what they can do down the stretch here. You've got to find some momentum down the back half of this SEC schedule. And I think that's the goal for them. And look, if there's a tournament
who knows what happens, right?
Like who knows? I think that's a long shot at this point. But find that momentum and continue to showcase your best player, which right now is Deanna Gaston. She is the 8th leading scorer in the country right now.
That's wild.
That is absolutely crazy. Can you imagine if the SEC's leading scorer in Talia Scott last year had been on this squad with Talia and those guys, they had been able to score together? Auburn would have been formidable. They would have still lacked some depth, but they still would have been formidable. So I like what Johnny Harris is doing. I think this year is a setback, I think, from a perception standpoint, but it's not. Sometimes there's chinks in the road along the way. And Auburn does not have the support for women's basketball that South Carolina and LSU and Ole Miss have. And so if you're trying to catch up to those programs, you got to put the support behind it. I think she proved it the first 3 years. A little unlucky in year 4, but year 5 will probably yield better results.
As you talked about the support, and I love that you brought that comparison with South Carolina, because one of the moments that you brought up as we wrapped up our War Rapport Wednesday last week was pretty much a call to action that the Auburn fans need to get behind this team. Look, Coach Harris is one of a kind. She's an absolutely incredible coach. As you mentioned last time, she's molding women in the right way. She's building programs the right way. But I guess to kind of echo that, that's how South Carolina did this. Dawn Staley, yes, she's kind of an icon of college women's basketball. But at one point, they had to go hand out tickets in the parking lot and just get this, build this brick by brick. As you mentioned, there are chinks in the road here every once in a while. We just got to be patient with Johni Harris, but also continue to support them, right?
Absolutely. I see Johni Harris at the men's games. I see her at football games. I see her supporting other sports. So she is out there trying to rally support for her program. There's such an opportunity in women's basketball today, Rex, to grow that segment of sports. What Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark were able to do last year, I think it brought a lot of eyes to women's basketball. And at the WNBA level, we saw how that affected contracts. They got chartered flights. People are watching the sport now.
They very much are.
And you are the farm league for that. You feed that. Those players come from the college level, and particularly the SEC. So why not invest in it right now? There was a time where the SEC asked its institutions to invest in college basketball, and look what they've done. Now they're the best conference in college basketball. So why not at the women's level as well, too? We need the investment. We need the investment from the administration. And I'm telling you, they've got the right coach in place. They just got to give her a little bit more time, and they've got to give her some dollars on the NIL end. Now, they're restructuring how that may look. In the future, schools may have more control over how NIL dollars are spent. If that happens, I'm interested to see what Johni Harris may be able to do if we don't have to pretend like everybody's not talking money anyway, because they
That's
are.
fair.
Yeah.
It's the world we live in now, but I think you're right, is that the one most important thing is that you have the right people in place, and Johni Harris looks like it as well. Another great War Rapport Wednesday here, but Mike, where can people find you on the War Rapport? And also, this isn't the only thing that you do.
Yeah, check me out on Twitter at Mike Gittens, all one word. You can find me on YouTube at The War Rapport, and on every social media platform at The War Rapport, TW Rapport on TikTok. Also find me on YouTube at Locked On UCF. We're talking Central Florida there. They're having a little bit of a tough basketball season as well, too.
Yeah.
A lot of close losses down in Orlando, but we're going to continue to cover it.
And Scott Frost back in the bounce house, so it'd be really interesting to see what's going on there. Y'all, that is Mike G, my friend. Thank you so much again for another great War Rapport Wednesday. We'll see you guys here next week for another War Rapport Wednesday. Until then, have a great time.